Hi, this is Michael. I am introducing you in week two to the concept of getting some data to work with, and that data is going to be have some interesting properties. We're going to explore exactly kind of what data looks like and how it's dealt with. But for now, just need a place to start. And once you start, you're welcome to share, and we can move on from there to get some feedback on how to move forward. One important part of data and having real data, and for all of you who have been designing in some way or another, you find that data can be very hard to get, or you yourself are creating it. And I'll use one example, which is if you're making a layout of some sort, you might use a concept called lorem ipsum. And lorem ipsum is just meaningless text. It's just there to be a placeholder. Personally, I think to do a good job as an information architect, you just can't use fake data and you can't use lorem ipsum because what is it you're organizing? You're just organizing the size and or prominence of something. So we're going to try to get real data. So as we move forward, we're really looking at, is this data getting the job done? So enough of the setup. Right now, I'm going to show you there's a importing with import.io movie, which you're welcome to take a look at. Thankfully, student Irina, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Irina looks right. Thank you so much for giving me links to some other options to scrape websites. But before we even get there, let's talk about this. How do I get data part? I recommend this way. You can do this import. Or if you know JSON, you can go to some other sources such as these free public sources of data. So, but let's start with recommended because I think it's the simplest, and it also is going to introduce you to Airtable, where you are going to create a account and you're going to put your data there and share it with me and others using the link. So let me just show you this. This link takes you to what's just basically a lot of templates. And if you just take a look in here and take some time trying to understand, let's say it was a personal CRM. Let's just take a look at this really quick. What's important about a personal CRM in their mind is that there are, let's see, different categories. Cool. One is networking, the other is employer. There are places apparently. And so in this case, you'll see this is a view that you can create. We're not going to get actually too fancy with data, so don't worry about anything but a flat table. I call it flat because you don't have to link to several different tables to make it less noisy. We're just really kind of getting a place to start, and the most important things are these things, which are the column headings and the data that goes in them. So, for example, the number 1 in a table without a header, just about as meaningless as you could get. If you put the number 2 in there, who knows what people could make of it. But when you say current employees, well, okay, that's how many people do they need or have? I guess this is something to do with managing. What is it? Managing your network, right? Get started, family, friends. Okay, so this is like a contact list. But you can see here the really fun and interesting part, and the actual meat of what we're trying to do this week is to take a look at these headers. So in this case, let's just go back a second to this people part. How do you talk about a person in this context? You're going to say, what is your connection? Is that another person? Overdue seems to be something to do with, have you talked to them? Oh, catch up. Have you caught up with them? Where they live? What company are they at? Where were they? Email, phone, their LinkedIn address, service area. So 100% hope this makes sense. This is a really, really interesting. The data itself is not important except for the example part, right? I know what a name looks like. I know what a LinkedIn address looks like, right? I know what an address looks like. And if I wanted to add a field, such as anything, pet's name, you can add it and feel free. At this point, once you start with some data, you can change it and add anything you wish. You don't necessarily have to come up with thousands of examples. We'll get to that in a minute, where we're trying to really make this pretty big data set, but in this case, these are people you know, and your purpose is to network with them. Let's just say where you might go with this as weeks go on is this is everyone you know in who's a LinkedIn member. So that could be millions upon millions of people. Is this data still relevant if you have millions of people? Sure, but we'll debate that. And again, not trying to make it too confusing, but you'll see that data structures can be pretty powerful because you can repeat them a lot. And repetition, by the way, is the name. We'll be working in Airtable, and Airtable has examples, and some of these examples seem just fine to represent a starting point so that you can change and update and make any additions that you'll need to have real looking data as we move forward. Hopefully that's clear. So this is I would think, the easiest way to go. Recommended, right? There's a lot of stuff here. I know it would take a little bit of time to explore, but let's just go into what I was talking about last week, which is to scrape something. So I'm going to need to switch browsers here. Okay, so here I am. I just did a search in Amazon, but I think actually this is kind of a good generic thing. So let's just take a look at using this plugin, and they do have some tutorials if you want to look, but basically you're going to have to name the properties, which is not a terrible thing, but it's a little tedious. So number one property here is when you get to this repetitious part, you're going to say here, it's that thing. Oh, okay, that property name is picture. Cool, let's do another. That sponsored, that these are all elements. I'm going to skip this one. Well, let's just keep it in. This looks like a tag of some sort, I guess. Certainly, if I go plus again, this looks like this looks like a description. Oops. Or, might not be the best way to state it, but I'm going to do another one, which is rating. And then I'm going to do another, which is, let's try to get this guy here. This looks like price. So far, so good. So you would go through this and click on things and give it a name, and the magic is this. So ready for the magic? Let's view the results. Cool. So now what you've done is basically take stuff right off that page and you've created a table. Pretty neat. And it's just going to go and keep going until it runs out of things because of, again, the repetitious nature of the internet means it's really a data delivery, storage, whatever you want to call it. Now, negative here is there's a couple things you're going to see later, and we can go in and deal with this as we move on. But this picture, well, this URL, see, there isn't actually a picture; it's just a link. That link belongs to Amazon, and in this case, you can just, for our purposes, just say picture and leave this blank, because you might have a picture. You might have two pictures. Your picture might need a caption. So if you want to really think about it, you might have 4 fields here, which is picture, link, picture, type, picture, name, picture address. See what I mean? Like you'd probably want, if you were going to really represent a picture, you wouldn't want something like this. So not to be too daunting, just to let you know. Rating, you'll also find, while it's really interesting in this context, is also it's a piece of metadata, meaning it's referencing something else that isn't really part of the description. So without being too confusing, it is kind of cool and fun to go and scrape these sites, and please do. It's really interesting. And maybe you can get a good start. Many have in this class done that. Now, in this particular plugin, what it does here also is create JSON. Without getting into too much detail, JSON is just a database, actually. If you look at it, you can kind of see exactly what it looks like. It is a table. Sorry to ruin it for everybody, but yeah, it's just very verbose about it, right? Here's the name of the field, and here's the name of the field, and here it's really repetitive, which is good because the internet at the moment doesn't really care about being too fast, I guess you'd call it, is the reason why they tried to speed these things up. So either way, now what do you do with this, and how do you get it into a form that you could put into here we go. Well, you could do two things. You can download the JSON. Actually, I just realized you have a CSV file, so that's even makes life easier. Once you download the CSV file, then you can just import that CSV file right into Airtable, and you're done. So I improvised a little on this. Hopefully you, through that, have seen what I hope is not a terribly hard and actually is somewhat interesting exploration that you'll do this week. And your first assignment is to turn in this exploration. So again, hopefully this is going to be fun, interesting, and share so that we can start to learn a little bit about the topic. Because one thing about this data set, I'm kind of interested in butter dishes, but not really. So what does that mean? I wouldn't be too married to this other than to understand that there's a picture, there's a description, and a price. That seems to probably work for maybe 90% of websites. So don't get too hung up that this initial data isn't going to be particularly mind-meltingly interesting. We're going to make it interesting, and we're going to actually, explore how to better organize this data as weeks go on. So definitely it's going to come in the future. All right, happy data finding.